C'est écoute Lexi B.
Jenny, how are you? It's so wonderful for you to be here.
I am great. I've been looking forward to our conversation all day, Lexi. So glad to be here.
I think that you are phenomenal. I know that we met in LinkedIn and then figured out a way to meet in person and share overpriced eggs and talk about what we do in AI and the importance of women in AI. So if folks don't know Jenny, she's doing some dynamic and phenomenal work on making sure that the women that are in the AI space know that the other people exist. Community is survival. But then number two, being other women in AI. So Jenny, why is that important to you?
As a woman in tech, I've been in Silicon Valley for about a decade, been out of, different companies, different startups, different things. And I find that when women are together, they can really make a difference. If you're the only in a room, it's really hard. And so for me, it's about making sure it's a little bit easier for the people who come after me and about inviting people in, right? Hey, it can be fun. Let's do this together. Let's go to this networking event together. And then some of the stuff doesn't seem so intimidating. And so creating pathways for other women to be in tech and to have fun while they're here.
So before we get started in our actual lesson for this episode, where your people from? How did you get here?
So I actually grew up in Minnesota, and my parents did live in California for a little bit before they had me, and my grandparents before them did. So I just thought that was what you did. I thought you went to school, got a degree, and you moved out to California for a decade, and then you came back to Minnesota. I just thought that was a normal thing to do. So I'm not super surprised that I ended up here in Silicon Valley. I will say, though, that I don't think I'm going to go back. A lot of both past generations did go back, but the whole snow thing, Lexi? No thanks.
You know that as a fellow Midwesterner, I tell people, I'm like, oh no, I'm not coming back permanently. I'll come for the Christmas holidays. I'll dabble in a snow. I love a good Hallmark Christmas movie card. And the Midwest will give you that. But I'm gonna need to go back home.
I don't want to have to deal with the snow shoveling. And you know what? I have really found kind of my chosen family here as well, though, being in tech and being with other people who are excited about the things that I'm excited about. Oftentimes, I would go to brunch for overpriced eggs back home, and everyone's like, okay, you're talking about startups again? Yes, have you heard who got funded? And everyone's like, really? But here, there's people like you who want to go chat about that stuff over eggs.
I want to talk to you about finding your voice. Some people will consider this self-advocacy, speaking up, things like that. But I actually do love the term finding your voice, because in order for you to actually use it, you got to find it first. So sis, let's talk about that. When was the first time that you realized that you have not found the voice, and more important, that you need to go find it immediately?
For me, I think I've always kind of had the voice on the inside, and it's been a lot about sharing the voice and making sure others can hear it. And one of the first times I remember, I was actually in college, and I went to this fraternity and sorority leadership weekend called Undergraduate Interfraternity Institute. And it's in Indiana at their school at IU there. And it was really interesting because everyone flew in from all over the country, right? It's people from everywhere. And you're going through different leadership training things and different exercises. And I don't even remember what the exercise was. It was something silly, but we all had to work together to do a thing. And we couldn't do the thing. And I knew how to do it. But I was like, oh, it's so simple to me. Clearly there's something wrong with my idea. No one else said it. It must be a bad idea. Kept my mouth shut. 15 minutes go by. Oh, this is uncomfortable. Should I say something? I wait another 5 minutes. Finally, I kind of tell the person next to me, and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this solution? And the person facilitating heard. and they said, "Hey, Jenny, what did you say?" And they actually made me say it in front of everyone. And lo and behold, it was the correct answer. And we were able to finish before the other teams. And so it was one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, if I would have just spoken up, we could have been done with this 20 minutes ago. And it was just really a light bulb moment of saying, oh, the thing I have to share is valuable and should be shared.
I remember when I first found my voice, or rather when I first realized that I had one, that I could identify with one. And as a little girl growing up in St. Louis, I was involved in a lot of theater. So I never had an issue with speaking up, but I definitely have this core memory in like middle school when I realized that if I did not speak up, I was not going to get what I wanted.
And actually, that reminds me of how we ended up here today, because I missed your email and you sent a text. And I was like, this is great, because you said closed mouths don't get fed. And I was like, you know what? I want to be there. I want to, I can move some stuff. Let's make this happen. And so it is very much a lesson of you have to ask for what you want. And there is a piece of advocacy. And there is also a piece of being comfortable and confident in the thing you're saying. And for me, in the past story I shared, that's something that was hard. I wasn't comfortable with knowing that I had the right idea. And so it was a bit of a journey for me to figure that out. And it's ebbed and flowed throughout my career, right? At different times, there have been, different levels of sharing my voice.
Let's go deeper into that part that you just said about being confident in the idea or in the advocacy, because I do agree with you. And I love that you said that. I think the foundational piece is that inside of you, are you confident about the thing that you want to say? Whether it's the right answer to the question, right, at the conference, or whether it's in your corporate role, speaking up for yourself or speaking up for your team or telling the leader what's wrong and what happened. You really have to be confident in your messaging. How did you start doing those steps to find more confidence in these thoughts that were in your head that needed to be spoken out loud?
So I think there's a bit of figuring out the environment you're in. Is it a safe environment? Is it somewhere you can share your voice? Are you able to do that and have support? And if not, that's okay too. You should still share your voice. It just might be a different way of preparing to do so. One of the things that started years ago when I started going into executive meetings for the first time was, oh, wow, these people know everything. And again, I don't know if I have the right answer. And so I ended up with a little mantra, a sticky note that I put right here on my computer, right by my keyboard, so I could see it every day, all day. And it said, your contributions at the executive level are appreciated and valued. And that gave me the little oomph I needed to be able to do that more, to be able to speak up. And so wherever you find yourself getting stuck, I suggest coming up with a mantra that works for you. And I know it sounds hokey. It's like, oh, I have to write it on a Post-it note. I'll remember it. No, you do. Write it on that Post-it note. You'll be glad you did.
I think that also flows into this idea of imposter syndrome a little bit, right? Because I remember my first job, Jenny, I would tell myself that I had imposter syndrome. And then about 18 months into it, I'm not going to lie to you, I was like, wait a minute. I don't have imposter syndrome. Because first of all, half of y'all in this room can't spell, period. And do I have imposter syndrome, or do I recognize that there are opportunities for me to learn because I am the least experienced on this topic in this room? And so my mantra ever since then was, you don't have imposter syndrome. You either A, have yet to use your voice, or B, you may be the least experienced person on this matter in this room, which then C, gives you a phenomenal opportunity to learn some things. Because you never want to be the most knowledgeable person in the room. That doesn't make you grow.
No, that's no fun. And I really like what you said, Lexi, about the beginning, that first point of you haven't shared your voice yet.
And I think it's important because we live in a world where we as women, are told not to use our voice. I was literally having breakfast with a friend of mine today who's phenomenal, a makeup artist and a creative. And she told me this story where she said, Lexi, my whole life, I was too much. I was told I was too much by other women. It wasn't the men, it was the women.
Oh,
And so we were having this conversation of like, what happens if we just don't tell girls they're too much? What if we just allow little girls to be all that and then some? And what does that look like? And why are people scared that women can have a voice and women be too much? I think that goes a lot deeper in the whole like freedom movement. Like, God forbid a woman is a president, right? And what that looks like. But I do think part of the patriarchal campaign is for women to not have a voice. But tell me more about that.
when you were talking, I got chills. What does that look like if we don't tell little girls that? And to me, it looks like change. It looks like progress. It looks like, really being able to invite people in for who they are. You shouldn't have to change yourself to fit a mold. You're going to be a lot happier if you get to be you. And your contributions are probably going to be more authentic. And there's no way for us to know what we're losing right now besides making a change. Maybe we should make that change together.
So you are an executive. What is your advice to the new generation coming up, to the new badass women coming up in whatever field they're in? If one of them came and sat down with you and said, look, I have to figure out this voice thing, right? What are the first steps that you would tell them?
I think it can be really hard to see yourself objectively. And that's okay. But I would go through, because I'm always super critical, right? Oh my gosh, I did that so bad, or I sent that email, or oh my gosh, I didn't respond to Lexi's email. It's over. We're never going to get eggs again, And it's like, wait a second. What would you tell a friend? Because if one of my best friends came to me with that, no big deal. She texted you. It's fine. Right? But at first, that little voice goes. And so I would really encourage you to talk to your close friends, mentors, sponsors, family, and see how they see you if you're struggling with that. I also did a fun exercise recently. One of my friends, Holly Uber, recommended that you upload whatever documents you want into something called Notebook LM. So I did my resume, I did my strengths class, I did my DISC profile, I did, all these different personality type tests that I've taken over the years. And I put my LinkedIn data in there and I let them actually do a podcast about me. The two AIs were talking about Jenny. But it was good though. It helped me see, in a way, a different way to talk about my successes, a different way to talk about my accomplishments, maybe a new lens to try for my personal brand. It was fun. You should do it, Lexi.
Wait a minute, because right now I'm thinking about like performance review time and I'm like,
Oh yeah.
Wait, this is called Notebook AI?
Notebook LM. It's by Google. It's free.
I love a good free. Okay, it's good. It's free. Folks to take notes. That's actually a really good idea because I do think that takes that. So a long, long time ago, Jenny, when I was very young, I just used really great Korean skincare. But a long, long time ago, early in my career, I was told to talk to a lot of people and have them give you feedback. Like, here are your strengths, what you should work on. And then once you get all that feedback, look at the ones that are the same. And those are the ones you should really work on. Because if 5 people tell you the same thing, good or bad, that's something to pay attention to. But now I'm going to let Google handle it. This sounds wonderful.
Yeah, and it's an amazing hype situation, right? It was great. I think one of the lines was, Jenny's absolutely killing it in tech. And I was like, thank you, Notebook LM. I appreciate that. So if you need a little hype or a little pick-me-up, definitely do it. And you know what? Use it during performance review season. I love that idea.
What are your thoughts, especially as a community builder with women in AI? Tell me more about how women in leadership who have already, or just even experienced women who have already found their voice or have already found their confidence or playing with it, how can we help the women who are yearning for that? Because I will sit here and tell you that for me to really craft my voice, my narrative, how I speak, how I respond to positivity and negativity at work, it was watching a lot of more experienced women. But what can we do to directly help the new folks coming in?
The first thing is, because of the position that these experienced women are already in, they're already doing something huge. By being visible and by being in these positions, like you said, it took watching a lot of other women for you to craft that. So just know every day when you're showing up and, it feels like a slog, just know that, you are making a difference. There's definitely some other women who are more junior in their career watching you and learning from you. And then the other thing I'd say is when you can help the other women, right? Whether that's at performance review season, whether that's saying, hey, come to this event with me. Or sometimes it says, hey, why don't we do this together? Sometimes I can get stuff done fast, but that's not the point. I don't want to rush through this presentation. I actually want to do it with somebody who might be more junior on my team and give them an opportunity, right? We'll build the presentation together. We'll talk about the messaging. We'll present it together. But you know what? I'm going to give you more airtime. And we're going to run through the presentation before so you feel comfortable walking into that room. And that's going to take me more time than it would have just to do it myself. But that's not the goal.
I had a woman in my career, shout out to Belinda Johnson, former GC of Airbnb. And I used to be in rooms with her and I'd watch her like a hawk. Like I thought this woman walked on water. And the reason why I thought that was I thought that she was so good at communicating her needs and also communicating what will and will not happen without people leaving and being like, this person yelled at me or this person was mean to me, right? And I loved that about her. And so I would literally sit in rooms and this sounds very stalkerish, but I would watch her body language when she said things that were not easy to say. And I would really listen to the adjectives and the words that she used and the elevation of her tone. And then I started playing with that at work to find my style, right? Because I really enjoyed what she did. And I'll never forget, we had a meeting and it was a hard conversation and everyone left. And I went up to her and I said, you just did that so effortlessly. And she looked at me and laughed and said, so you didn't see me shaking in my boots at no point. And it was the first time that someone so high made it clear to me that they were so human. And I remember since that conversation, I was like Belinda Johnson for president because it just made me feel like she was a human. And I do think that we need more of that in the women community, especially. I think that we want to put on these airs, if you will, of being perfect because that's how we actually climb the ladder, even though we're not, but also showing that humility in safe spaces. So with that said, how is Women in AI, this community you've built, allowing experienced women to showcase that vulnerability and that humanity and also make it clear that we mess up too, fam. We have no idea what's going on. Okay.
We don't. Each piece of my career, Lexi, I thought, wow, if I was just a director, I would have it all figured out. And then I got there and I was like, oh no. Oh, if I had a C-suite title. And then, oh, if I was an investor, if I was an LP in a fund, I would know everything. And guess what? No. So with that said, how is Women in AI making room for this? Well, we try and foster communication and collaboration with all of our members. And so one of the things we did is we actually tiered our membership. It's free. You can sign up. And we have programming dedicated to different career stages. So there's, the early career stage, and we call those our catalysts. Then there's like the mid-career. You've been playing with AI. You've been in the career world. Like you kind of know what's going on. And those women have different needs than the women who are in the catalyst stage. And for that stage, it is our innovators. And how do we support them? Because you might be managing people. And that transition, when you go from IC, individual contributor, to manager, can be hard. Yeah, it's not talked about enough, but it can be hard. And so for me, providing support for them while also helping them lift up the people who are coming next. And then we have our visionary tier, which are the executives, the founders, the movers and shakers, the industry titans. They also want to help bring people up and they want to share their voice. So we have different programs dedicated to every stage of career and encourage women to authentically share their voice. I know a lot of times in leadership, we'll see men in a particular role. And a lot of us, myself included, said, okay, I see a CEO. I might want to do that. Here's how I do that. I'm going to act like him. It's not comfy. It was not good. It didn't feel authentic and good for me. It's like, okay, that's not the way I want to lead. And so we want to amplify these women and their voices in the way that they want to lead, in the way that they want to share their voice and share their message. And so that's been a lot of fun. Over the last year, we literally handed the mic to over 130 women in our different programs. And I can't wait to see how many more we hand them to in 2025.
So now we have to get a little sad for a second and really learn these learnings. But what happens when you start playing with your voice? Because you have to play with it, fam. Like, you have to play with it, right? You have to build that confidence to say, okay, I'm going to say something. We're going to see how it hits. We're going to see if they laugh. We're going to see it look like I got 3 heads. And then we're going to flex it out a little bit. But those days at work, as you're navigating this and curating your voice, if you will, and someone, particularly a man, takes your idea, interrupts you, in so many ways silences you in real time. How do we bounce back from that? Because that's an important skill, because it will happen. Someone is going to try to silence you if you start using your voice, and God forbid, advocate for yourself.
Whew, that's a hard one. First of all, it happens to all of us. It shouldn't, but it does. So be ready for it. Think about it now. Think about how you might want to respond. Some days it's easier to let it go and try again tomorrow. Other days it's easier to say, hey, actually, let me finish what I was saying. Some days you might want to do a little softer approach and say, thanks, Bob, for saying that. As I was saying, there's a few different ways and different levels of dealing with it. And one of the things I often think about, I wish I could remember the source of it, but I heard from someone on the internet that you should do what you can when you can. And so sometimes you don't have the energy. Sometimes I don't have the bandwidth to get into that fight or that disagreement or that learning opportunity with them today. Maybe you have another meeting you've got to run to. Maybe you got to go do something else. And that's okay. You can show up again tomorrow and engage in a way that works for you. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to find allies in that group. The women, yes, the women in Obama's White House did this amazingly. There's a great article by Vox Media, and it talks about how they did this. So if you have people in that room who can amplify you and say, hey, actually, Lexi was talking, or great idea, Lexi, or let's circle back to Lexi's idea, giving her that attribution, giving her space for airtime, these things really make a difference. It's unfortunate that you might have to go out there and set it up and have conversations and recruit allies and say, hey, I noticed so-and-so is talking a bit over people. What can we do? Another way of doing it that I've often found works is when you are in those meetings and it happens to someone else, be the person who stops it. It's easier to advocate when it's not happening to you.
That last one is so poignant to me, because I always tell people that I work with is, do not expect me to be your ally when you're not going to be mine.
Yeah.
And I think many times, especially as a Black woman, I am almost expected to be everyone else's ally. And there have been many times in my career where those same people weren't. So I'm very big on, if you want someone to, I always tell my team, if you want someone to roll up for you, you better roll up for them. And I agree with you. It is so much easier for someone else to be like, oh, Jenny, I'm so sorry. We kind of cut you off, but can you complete that thought real quick? Than for you to do it yourself. And I'm hoping that we can build that more into our corporate spaces for women and men.
Oh, yeah.
And in between.
Absolutely.
Of just humans acknowledging poor behavior, or, where I'm from, we say uncouth, lack of home training.
Yeah.
And any human in the room is like, oh, we're not going to do that today. So, Jenny, can you just continue real quick? Thanks. Right? Because that leads me to my last thing that I want to talk to you on is, how does finding your voice and utilizing your voice support your bag?
Support your bag. Oh, I love it. Secure the bag.
Secure it.
So here's the deal. At the end of the day, when you are looking at your compensation, right? And that could be your salary, your equity in the company, your bonus, all of these things. I want to have more women have access to a bigger bag, to more money, because women often are underfunded in the startup space. And so if we have more women making more money, and then they're making investments in venture, guess where that money is going to end up going?
To women.
Yes. And so it's under 2% of VC funding goes to startups who are founded by females, full female teams. Like 20-something% goes to mixed teams, which is great, but we need more. And so to do that, as you share your voice, you're going to be able to propel forward in your career. And as you do that, you'll have more visibility. You're going to get the promotions. You're going to be able to get that dream job you want. You're going to work at that target company that's been on your list for years. And you're going to also have an awesome time negotiating that compensation. You're going to know your worth. You're going to have a community, a support team around you who's going to help you through that. And at the end of the day, you're going to go home with a bigger bag, and hopefully you'll invest that in women, which will make your bag even bigger.
And we all know that if you do not advocate for yourself, if you do not literally use your voice in meetings, if you do not say your ideas, if they are not acted upon, the bag's not coming.
No, it's not. Airtime matters.
Ooh, tell me more about that. Airtime matters. I love that quote. Tell me more about airtime mattering.
I took this class in continuing ed at Stanford Education. I'm one of those lifelong learner people. So if like tuition wasn't insane, I would just keep going to school. But they keep charging for it. So anyways, and it was really interesting because they were talking about women in tech and negotiating. And it was going actually towards the conversation we just had, Lexi, about how do you get to that next place in career? And the first thing was airtime, because people are going to associate you with what you said, with the space you took up, with the way you made the room feel, the way you made the room think. So there are different things that you can do. You can even, there's different apps online that you can hit and they'll listen and record and say the gender balance of who was talking. There's even, I don't know if you use fireflies.ai at all for any of your meetings. It sends you a little summary of what happened and of who was talking. So we use that for our Women in AI meetings so we can see who was talking the most and make sure everyone has the ability to talk more if they'd like to, making sure that conversation is balanced. So share your voice, be visible, and if you're having trouble with it, go through it with your allies, go through it with somebody else who's in the meeting and say, hey, Lexi, we're in this meeting together and I'm trying to talk more. Can you help?
And I think not enough people do that because I think it's something so elementary, but so profound, right? Because the very few times that people have done that with me, I'll literally tell them before the meeting, okay, so what do you want to say? Okay, and when do you want to say it? Then. And I have no problem in the meeting at the right time saying like, oh, Jenny, we were talking about that one thing, and I think the group would love to hear. Sometimes we need someone just to invite us in, and it's so elementary and it's so simple, and I've never heard someone say no to that request, honestly.
Same. And every time I have made it or told my team or my direct reports or people I'm mentoring to make it, it has been well received.
Ooh, I love this. I love this. So in closing, Jenny, reintroduce yourself to us. Who are you?
I am someone who likes to work with other women in the tech space to elevate their voices. I like to create opportunities. I like to create connection, and I am passionate about helping female founders on their journey.
I love it. Thank you so much for what you do for the community, for uplifting women, for recognizing the intersectionalities within women, and then also uplifting those. And just for being you in the process, because you're fantastic.
Oh, thanks, Lexi. And thanks so much for having me today. I had a great time sitting with you, chatting with you, connecting, and I am so excited to tune into the rest of your guests this season.
Thank you. Thank you.